Good afternoon. Thank you so much for inviting me here at your meeting, pre-ASA meeting. It's difficult to follow 10 years of work that Steve has shown. My proposal is to really put a few ideas on the slides because I don't have 10 years to show you as Steve has done. I would like to introduce myself, actually. Is always a little difficult. I have some friends in this room that I know well for years, particularly Dr. Foreman and Dr. Rodovich. I met them at the study section, the SAT, for years. We fought about grants. But I think I want to say a few words about myself. Then my motivation to become the editor-in-chief of this journal, some outcome goals for the journal, some will discuss some proposed structural and process changes for the journal and my action plan for the next 2 years. First, I am the first editor-in-chief that is not born in this country. I am Swiss by being born in Switzerland. I have now also an American passport, but I've kept 2 passports. I was born in Fribourg in the French part of Switzerland. I went to medical school in Lausanne. And then after 1 year of residency in anesthesia, as he was the custom at that time, my vice chair said, you need to go to learn German. So I ended up to be in the eastern part of Switzerland in St. Gallen when I did in Swiss German, actually not in German, my training in anesthesia. After going back to Switzerland, to the French part of Switzerland, I went to Geneva when I really learned to do research for 6 years, doing a lot of study. And I started actually by doing pharmacological study with muscle relaxant. I published several papers in anesthesiology at that time. So I know a tiny bit of pharmacology. And after 6 years in Geneva, I went to UCSF. Originally for 2 years, I stayed 20. I worked at the CVRI, Cardiovascular Research Institute, for 2 years with Mike Matte, who was my mentor there, and really somebody who has, really have a major effect on my career. And then after 2 years, Dr. Miller, previous editor-in-chief of this journal, offered me a job as an assistant professor, and I stayed until 2010 when I was offered the job as director of the critical care division and Department of Anesthesia at UAB in Birmingham, Alabama. However, I kept my ties with Europe, and in 2013, I was offered an additional position at the University of Nice in southern France as a professor associate, and I really worked with them for 1 year to develop their trauma center, to foster research and exchange of residents. We have a plan to have exchange of residents between UAB and University of Nice, which I think is an aspect of education that is very important. But, the reason to this journey, which is a little bit an improbable journey, was the opportunity for me to bring my understanding of research, education, and leadership to the next level. Now, I just want to tell you why I wanted this job. I was elected as editor of anesthesiology when this position became open, and I thought that was a challenge to raise the visibility of the specialty of anesthesiology, pain medicine, and perioperative medicine. I do believe that we are at a crossroads. It's maybe a cliche to say this, but I think there is huge pressure now to perform, to be very performant in the operating room and in perioperative area. And I think it leaves us a very little time to do academic work. Research, education is not easy today. The time of the clinical work is very costly and is not easy to get. The second reason is also to promote education and research via the journal, which I hope to make, and following what Steve has done, the destination journal of the anesthesia community. So my vision for the journal is really to develop a journal which is reader-centered. This is very, very important. I believe that we owe the member, the member of the IRS, we owe them something. This is their journal. And I want also to provide the best experience for authors throughout the review process. This is very important. If you have a young assistant professor, we submit a paper of 2 years clinical paper, 2 years of hard work, and is flatly rejected because a major flaw in the design of the study, I can assure you that this colleague will not do research again, or the chance that he does research is very minimal. So I think this this is a big problem today. We need to publish, as Steve said before, the best possible article in education in research. We need to improve the mentoring of young anesthesiologists. And what I mean by this is that there is a role for the journal to help people, to mentor people through sessions during the SA meeting and the IRS meeting. I think some departments do not have enough mentor. Everybody talk about mentor, but nobody talk about how we pay mentor. You know, mentoring people, and many of you in this room have done this, is costly because it's time off the clinical work. And I think it's easy to talk about it. Finding mentor in anesthesia today is not so easy. I think we need also to promote the role of anesthesiologists as perioperative physician. I strongly believe that the way we'll survive is by demonstrating that we are physicians. I am not sure that the fight against cRNAs is the right way to go. And I'm not an expert, but I'm a little concerned that we are choosing the wrong battle. I think the way to do it is to demonstrate that we are physicians. And the perioperative surgical home is a model of care. I'm not saying it's the only model, but it's a model of care. We are studying this really heavily at the UAB. There are other centers in the US who are doing this. The SA has taken this as a big role into this perioperative surgical home. And I think it's very important that we need to be involved not only in EOR, but in the whole perioperative period. If I compare to what's going on in Europe, in some countries, like my country, Switzerland, but also France and others, the anesthesiologists are involved in the perioperative period. Finally, I think Steve mentioned this. I think we need to reach out anesthesiologists and the public in the Western world, but also in the developing country. Most of anesthetics are delivered in developing country. And if you talk to physicians working in this country or some people from our country going there, the problem they have in developing country are not the same problem that we do have. And I think there is an important aspect of the concept of International Anesthesia Research Society is that we need to help the people in developing country to solve some of their problems. So I like to use the famous Donabedian Triad for examining healthcare service and evaluating the quality of care. I think that the concept of structure, process, outcome, I think is a very important concept, and it could be applied to the continuous development and of an expansion of scientific journal. So what are the measurable outcome goals? Yes, the increased impact factor. I don't want to say more. The impact factor has some flaw. Unfortunately, is used by many academic centers, including in the US and in Europe. In Europe, they use also other factors like the CGAP factor, like the H factor, but still the impact factor is used for promotion. We will try to increase the citation index, citation download, Steve talked about it, increase the number of journal subscription, and increase the approval rate of the journal measured by mixed method approach. I want to do a survey, but the mixed method approach is a technique that allows to quantify scientifically qualitative approach. And I think this is very important to know really what the author, what the readers think about of the journal. It needs to be a dialogue back and forth between the leadership of the journal and the stakeholder of this journal. The analgesia and anesthesia analgesia has two major components, one administrative component within San Francisco and a scientific component. I will not talk about the administrative aspect, but the stakeholder of the scientific component are here. Of course, the editor-in-chief, the section editor, the editorial board, and you, the affiliated society. The last year since my election at this position, I spent my time to go from one society to the next to discuss with the board, the executive board of this society. I met with your board this morning, and we have currently 10 societies, but we'll increase by 2 or 3, and I really want to have a constant dialogue with the board of the different society affiliated to the journal. I think it's absolutely critical. So I propose some structural changes. The first one will be to increase the number of subspecialty society affiliated to the journal. We just affiliated the Trauma Anesthesia Society, for which I'm a board member. We have the Society for Advancement of Blood Management is very interested. There are other societies that potentially might be interested to join the journal. I will add new section editor for cancer and palliative care. This is a major problem today in the US. The population is becoming older. Cancer is a major problem. Anesthesiologists may play a role in pain treatment of this patient and in palliative care. I will also propose to add for a fee in a well-determined fashion a consulting editor and have a biostatistician that can be consulted by author. One of the problems we have, I mentioned this before, is that in smaller departments, there is maybe not the mentor that needs to be there to help younger people to be successful. And when I discussed with your board this morning, it's clear that it cannot be done in random fashion, otherwise it will not work. But if it's done with a contract between an author or department and the journal, I think it can be helpful. I want also to expand the pool of ad hoc manuscript reviewers. I want to give the opportunity to younger people to start their academic career at this level by reviewing papers. And obviously, we need to increase the number of international members of the editorial board. That is absolutely critical. We need to have an emphasis on minorities, gender repartition, and colleagues of developing countries. The process change, which will involve myself, is to develop new areas for the journal. Health policy, health services is very important today. Anesthesiologists are involved, and we have very, very excellent people in our specialty dealing with this. Practice management, personalized medicine, and a concept that is very, very important, which is called dissemination in implementation science. We have a lot of guidelines in anesthesia and critical care, pain medicine. But if you look at the application of these guidelines, I think is not very good. And I think that science, dissemination, implementation science, address this question. Why are the guidelines not really applied as they should be? Includes study of question of great importance for population health of developing country. Again, I travel around the world in many, many countries in my life, and it's very impressive to see that, the problem are not the problem that we have in the Western world, Western Europe or US, and I think we need to address those issues. I think I will do this in large part via the World Federation of Anesthesiology. We have a section editor, currently is Hugo Van Haken, and there are also people working with him to help to develop this. I want also to address what the younger people are using. They don't use email, they use Facebook. When I communicate with my kids, and I have 4 adult kids, if I send her an email on a regular email, I never get a response. If I send a text on Facebook, within 2 hours, I get a response. And I think this is very important. And I want to develop also what we call infographics. I want to spend a minute about this. Infographics is basically summarizing with an image and very little text a message, for example, a paper. Anesthesiology, if you pay attention, has started to do this. Jim Rathmel and Dr. Wanderer from Vanderbilt are doing now for each issue of anesthesiology one infographic. Why is it important? Because in a developing country, you do not have computer, you have cell phone. You cannot send a whole paper on a cell phone, but you can send a picture with one message. It can be translated in multiple languages very quickly because you have very few words, but you have one image which summarizes the story. And I think this is one way to disseminate science and disseminate knowledge across the world. I want also to develop and expand the formal relationship with the board director and leadership of the subspecialty societies that are affiliated with the journal, what I did this morning with your society. And also we have not only the subspecialty society, but we have a society, international society that are associated with the IRS, the Canadian Society, the German Society of Anesthesia, the European Society of Anesthesia, and I think the Japanese Society. And I went last June to the ESA, European Society of Anesthesia meeting in Berlin, and this is very superb. I mean, they have done absolutely incredible work, the way the meeting was organized, the contact we have, and I think the IRS had a symposium in association with ESA. Now, I have also some expectation for our section editor. I think it's very important. I want to, and Steve mentioned some of them before, but I want to have them reviewing the manuscript by strictly following the guideline of the journal, to have wise choice of reviewer. I want excellent and timely summary of the review, a reasonable and fair editorial decision. They should be available to the authors. They should be involved in the call for papers. The contribution to original research and review of manuscripts should be there. They are not just there to review paper, but they should contribute to the journal. They have the expectation to attend meeting, and I think this is very important. I want them to go forward, to attend the meeting that you had today, attend the essay meeting in their specialty or subspecialty, to go after papers, introduce themselves, and try to attract the best paper to the journal. And finally, the evolution of the work of the reviewer for the journal. I'm planning to review the review process, the submission process. We have now a company, J&J, that is handling the submission to the journal. So I think this will make easier, I think, for authors. I appreciate the work that Steve Schaefer has done with the submission to the journal, but I think there is maybe some simplification to be done. In addition, I want also the review process to be simplified and to be probably more timely. And I do believe that we should decrease the number of review. I think it's an important work for the section editor to summarize at the first review what they want from the authors. And of course, the author have to respond. But I think this is very critical. For the statistical review process, we are on the way to hire a PhD in biostatistics that will function as a statistician for the journal, like Tim Hull is functioning for anesthesiology. This biostatistician will review each paper that could be accepted, and likely at the end of the first review, before the paper is sent to the authors, if the paper has a chance to be accepted, ultimately, the statistician will be involved. The biostatistician will be also available to answer questions from section editor, reviewer, if necessary. We'll continue what Steve has started, which is very important, is the statistical review for editors. I think it's true that anesthesiologists don't understand statistics well, and I think we can educate ourselves more in this area. And we continue to publish statistical grand round. I think they've been well appreciated and very helpful. Now, I think in terms of increased impact factor and dissemination of clinical information, I think to increase the impact factor, yes, we increase the review. That is the old trick. You publish more review, you have better impact factor, if the review are the good quality. But we also need to provide authors with excellent and detailed review of their own work, because if the quality of the research paper is better, we have a chance to have a better citation. We need, I mentioned the creation of position of consulting editor and biostatistician, and I think we should organize educational session for author at the annual meeting, at the IRS meeting. In terms of increasing the dissemination of clinical information to the reader, I think we should highlight important articles that would become open access articles. This is a big problem, you know. You cannot just say, oh, every article is open access without paying anything. There is a business behind this, and we have to keep the journal profitable. We cannot just have a journal that become non-profitable. We will continue to, as I said, create geriatric cancer and palliative care section, and I may consider to have paper only published online. One, we need to keep the balance. ANA is, anesthesia and analgesia is well read by anesthesiologists, maybe better than anesthesiology, because it's more clinical. On the other side, I think we should give the opportunity to scientists to publish their paper. The question is how we do this is for me to solve in the future. But one possibility would be to have supplement on basic science, thematic supplement with excellent review and a series of original articles. So what is my action plan for the next 2 years? I want to first work closely with the affiliated society during the transition period, what I have started. I want to implement a strategic planning initiative for both components of the journal. For the section editor, it will be in January or February. We'll have a retreat for 2 days when we'll do what we call a SWOT analysis, which is looking at strengths, opportunity, weaknesses, and threats. And I think this is very important because I think we need to have a fresh look at the journal and see what's going well, what can be changed, and modified. We modify, of course, when you have a change in an editor-in-chief, you modify always a little bit the editorial board. We'll develop new area for the journal, as I mentioned, and attract a broader set of author and reader. Now, the strategic planning initiative, I want to say a quick word here. The goal is to give to the section editors, the handling editors, the ownership of what they are doing, to engage them and keep them accountable. The planning is to define clearly the vision for the journal, examine, as I said, external threat and opportunity, define internal strength and weakness, and formulate an action plan. The implementation, the external environment, while defined, the external environment of the journal will define what you should do. The internal environment define what we could do, and the mission and vision will define what we want to do. And I think this is very, very important. I think this strategic initiative is absolutely critical to make sure that everybody is going in the same direction. My leadership vision for the editor-in-chief of this journal, I think the editor-in-chief should have a vision, energy, authority, and strategic direction of the journal. However, I don't think that the editor-in-chief should buy into the myth of a complete leader, this kind of monster with a flawless being at the top of who got it and figure everything. I think that the editor-in-chief should accept that he or she is an incomplete leader and need the following leadership capability that I will define: sense-making, relating, communicating, and inventing. Sense-making, what it means that you need to interpret the development in a journal environment to sense where what are the issues in this environment of the journal. Relating, I need to build trusting relationship, reason why I'm here today, and with all the society. Communicating, I think is very important to communicate a compelling image of the future. And finally, inventing is to provide new way to doing things. It's not just creativity. Invention is more than creativity. It's creativity, but keeping under the anointment of what is feasible. Thank you very much.